Marcus Aurelius was born into power but died embracing philosophy. He is one of the most important emperors in Roman history and a key figure in the history of Stoicism. But who was Marcus Aurelius, and why should we care about him today? That's what we're going to find out in this episode of the History of Stoic Philosophy. How did Marcus Aurelius go from being an angry young man to the epitome of the resilient Stoic? Let's find out. It's me. Welcome to the History of Stoic Philosophy. This series explores the ancient roots of modern psychology and self-help ideas by examining the lives and teachings of the ancient Stoics. So far in this series, we have explored how Stoicism began with Socrates and the schools of Athens. We learned how Zeno founded Stoicism in Athens after experiencing a shipwreck. We examined how Cleanthes succeeded Zeno and how he developed the system of Stoic cosmology and physics. Then we saw how Chrysippus built upon Cleanthes' teachings, adding ethics, logic, and the concept of the chief good. Finally, in the last episode, we met Seneca, the first of the new Stoics. We learned about his difficult childhood, his meteoric rise to power under the patronage of the Emperor Nero, and we explored the core of his philosophical system in his work, Moral Letters to a Friend. Today, however, we will be looking at the life and legacy of Rome's most famous Stoic, Marcus Aurelius. So let's begin with the beginning. Marcus Aurelius was born on April 26, 121 AD in Rome, but spent most of his youth in Spain. He was the son of Domitia Faustina the Elder and the adoptive son of Antoninus Pius, who was emperor at the time. Marcus's mother was actually the woman that Antoninus Pius was having an affair with before he became emperor. And when Antoninus became emperor, he also adopted Faustina's two young sons, making them his heirs. Thus, Marcus Aurelius was not biologically related to Antoninus, but because he was adopted by Antoninus, he was considered to be his son. Sadly, both of Marcus's biological parents died. While he was still young, his mother Faustina died in 140 AD while Marcus was in Spain, and his biological father, Niceros, died sometime shortly after that. As a result, young Marcus Aurelius was raised by his grandparents on his father's estate in Spain for most of his youth. In 138 AD, Antoninus became very ill and sent for Marcus and his younger brother to come to Rome. After Antoninus recovered, he formally designated both of his adopted sons as his heirs. However, it was made clear that Marcus was first in line. While this may seem like a great honor for Marcus, it was actually just a heavy burden. In fact, according to the historian Cassius Dio, Marcus hated the idea of becoming emperor and was terrified of acquiring power, and he tried everything he could to avoid his fate. You see, Marcus had been tutored by two philosophers, Junius Rusticus and his uncle Julius Servianus, and they had taught him that power was corrupting and that the pursuit of power was dishonorable. So, despite being next in line, Marcus tried to get out of his obligations. For example, he tried to pass on the responsibility to his brother Lucius, who was younger and less philosophically inclined than he was. But these attempts failed, and eventually, in 161 AD, Antoninus grew tired and abdicated the throne in favor of Marcus Aurelius. The same year, Antoninus traveled to the province of Pannonia, which is now Croatia, where he died in March. Marcus Aurelius and his brother then returned to Rome to take over the empire together. But sadly, Lucius would only serve as co-emperor for 2 years. You see, Lucius wasn't really cut out for the job. According to Cassius Dio, he lacked discipline and was lazy, and so Marcus ended up doing most of the work. Additionally, Lucius was cruel and capricious, and after he whipped some gladiators for losing a fight, he was bitten by a slave that he had been torturing. The wound became infected, and Lucius died in 163 AD, so just 4 years after they took power together, Marcus Aurelius became the sole emperor of Rome. Over the next 16 years, he would rule wisely and justly and valiantly, subduing rebellions, conquering Germanic tribes, and even invading the Parthian Empire. However, most of his military campaigns were actually fought by his capable generals, while he himself stayed back in Rome. You see, despite his warrior reputation, Marcus Aurelius was actually a pacifist who hated war. In addition to his martial and political accomplishments, Marcus Aurelius is also remembered for his philosophical accomplishments. For example, he wrote one of the most important books on Stoic philosophy, Meditations, and he was the first to codify and systematize Stoic philosophy into a manual or handbook for living. But there's much more to Marcus Aurelius' story, and to learn more about him, please consider checking out my podcast, The Stoic Emperor. The series covers the entire life of Marcus Aurelius, exploring the events that shaped him, the people that influenced him, and the legacy that he left behind. You can listen to episodes on various platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Simply search for The Stoic Emperor, and now, let's get back to the video. One of the reasons that Marcus Aurelius is so famous is that he set the standard for resilient leadership. He led Rome through hard times. The Antonine Plague, a disease that killed millions, ravaged his empire. He suppressed revolts and rebellions. He battled invaders from every direction. And yet, he remained strong and stoic. He never lost sight of his principles. We see this resilience in the pages of his personal journal, Meditations. Here we see the inner thoughts and reflections of one of history's greatest leaders. And in his Meditations, we see that he struggled with fear and anger and doubt and anxiety, just like the rest of us. And yet, he pressed on. Another reason that Marcus Aurelius is so revered is that he defined the standard for wise and virtuous leadership. He didn't use his power for personal gain. Instead, he used it to help others and to make the world a better place. He ruled according to the principles of justice, wisdom, and courage. And he always put the needs of his people before his own. We see this commitment to virtue in his other philosophical work, his 12-volume writing, The Destiny of the Deity, in which he describes the nature of the cosmos and humanity's place within it. Marcus Aurelius saw the cosmos as a rational and orderly place governed by the principles of justice and virtue. And he believed that humans had a duty to live in accordance with those principles. Now, whether or not he lived up to these ideals all the time is up for debate. Historians argue about whether or not Marcus Aurelius was a benevolent ruler or a tyrant, but there's no denying that he tried to live according to the principles he espoused, and in that sense, he was the epitome of the Stoic ideal. Finally, Marcus Aurelius is so revered because he set the standard for the philosopher king. He combined the duties of political leadership with the rigors of philosophical inquiry. He didn't abandon philosophy in favor of politics. Instead, he used philosophy to inform and improve his political decision-making. And he always tried to be a student of life, learning from the experiences and challenges he faced each and every day. We see this commitment to learning in his personal journal, Meditations. Here we see that he grappled with questions of morality and justice and the meaning of life. And he always tried to improve himself and become a better version of himself. When Marcus Aurelius died in 180 AD, he had been emperor for 19 years. During his reign, he had led Rome to victory in war and peace. He had written some of the most important works on Stoic philosophy, and he had set the standard for virtuous and resilient leadership. Marcus Aurelius's ideas and writings have inspired countless people throughout history. Today, we remember him as one of the most important figures in Stoic philosophy, and we study his life and work to learn how to be more resilient, more virtuous, and more wise in our own lives. This has been the history of Stoic philosophy. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. You can also follow me on social media to get updates and learn more about upcoming projects. Thanks for watching.